Useless girl, one-eyed devil, I knew you were a curse from the day you entered this house. Grace screamed in pain. 90% of Chief Emeka's assets, including land documents, company shares, and bank accounts, will be held in trust for his daughters, Grace and Bella Mandu, until they attain the age of 23. The sun was shining, casting long shadow across the Mandu family mansion. It was the beginning of the long vacation, and as usual, Grace and her twin sister Bella were packing their bags, laughing and jumping on their beds with excitement. "Mommy, are we going to Auntie Nana's house today?" Bella asked, running downstairs in her red dress. "Yes, my dear," their mother, Mrs. Amaka Mandu, answered with a warm smile. "Your daddy has already sent the driver to bring them some fresh yam and rice. We'll be leaving soon." Grace was excited. "I can't wait to play hide and seek with Chike and Ebere." Chief Emeka Mandu, their father, walked in with his calm and regal presence. His smile was always gentle. His voice was firm but kind. "Now, girls, remember to behave. Don't scatter Nana's house like last time. And be nice to your cousins, okay?" "Yes, Daddy." At Auntie Nana's house, the air was always filled with the sound of children laughing, goats bleating from the backyard, and the smell of boiling egusi. "Bella, come and see Chike lay eggs," Chike shouted from the backyard. Grace laughed. "Ebere, let's fetch water from the well." They ran around playing ten, and in the evenings they sat with their parents and Auntie Nana, listening to folk tales and eating roasted corn. Back in their home, Chief Emeka and his wife were known in the community as generous people. They gave freely to neighbors, paid school fees for distant cousins, and even bought textbooks for children on their streets. But none received more help than Nana and her husband Benji. Years ago, Benji had lost his job and they were thrown out of their one-bedroom apartment. Chief Emeka took them in, paid for a new house, gave Benji money to start up a business, and continued to send them a monthly allowance for over 7 years. He even paid the school fees of Chike and Ebere from primary school to secondary school. "I don't know how to thank you, Brother Emeka," Nana said once, tears in her eyes. "May God bless you and your family." "You don't need to thank me, Nana. We are family," Chief Emeka had said. "Grace and Bella love coming here. That alone gives me joy." And indeed, every holiday was filled with joy. Grace and Bella adored their cousins, and the family was very close. But none of them knew that darkness was slowly waiting at the corner, ready to shatter everything. One evening, the rain was pouring heavily. Thunder rumbled in the distance as lightning lit up the sky like a warning from the heavens. Chief Emeka Mandu, his wife Amaka, and their 2 daughters, Grace and Bella, were on their way back from a wedding ceremony in Nsukka. The girls were asleep in the back seats. Emeka turned to Amaka with a smile. "Look at them. Even in their sleep, they hold hands." Amaka smiled. "They are 2 halves of the same soul. Nothing can ever separate them." But fate had other plans. A trailer speeding from the opposite lane with 40 brakes skidded the wet road. The driver lost control. Emeka tried to swerve, but his brakes failed him. The next thing they heard was a crash and then silence. Grace woke up a few days later to the smell of disinfectant. Her head felt heavy. Her left eye ached terribly. She could hear the beeping of machine and the faint murmur of voices around her. She tried to move her hand but couldn't. Bandages covered her arms. Her throat was dry. She turned her head slowly and tried to speak, but all that came out was a groan. "Auntie," she whispered. Nana, seated beside her bed, stood quickly. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Grace, oh God, thank you. You are awake. My baby, oh my poor baby. Grace blinked. Where is Bella, mommy and daddy? Nana froze. Tears spilled down her face as she knelt beside the bed. I'm so sorry, Grace. They didn't make it. The word did not make sense to her. Grace stared at her aunt, confused. No, no, auntie, that's not funny. I wish it was a joke, but they are gone. All of them. The accident, it took them. The room spun. A loud ringing filled her ears. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her heart pounded. She screamed till her throat burned, till the nurse ran in and held her down. I want my mommy and daddy, she cried. Bring back Bella. She was just beside me. Everyone felt pity for her, including the nurses and doctors. Grace stayed in the hospital for weeks, but no day passed that she did not cry, wishing they had stayed home that day. Her left eye was damaged. The doctor said it couldn't be saved. She will have to live with one eye, the doctor had told Nana quietly. But she's lucky to be alive. Every night, Grace cried herself to sleep in pain. Physical pain from the accident and emotional pain from losing her entire world. She would wake up in the middle of the night screaming Bella's name. Nana would try to comfort her, but there was something cold behind her eyes. Her hearts were stiff. Her voice lacked warmth. You have to stop crying, she snapped one night. Crying would bring them back. Grace looked up with tears. But I miss them, auntie. I miss them so much. But Nana paid no attention to her. The funeral was like a dream, a terrible, endless dream. 3 white coffins stood side by side in the compound of the Madu family house. People came in their hundreds, family, friends, and those who had once benefited from Chief Emeka's generosity. Grace wore a black gown. Her face was pale, her eye covered with a white patch. She looked lost, like a ghost among the living. As they lowered her father, mother, and sister into the ground, she held Nana's hand tightly. My daddy always said he will walk me down the aisle, she whispered. Nana said nothing. My mommy, she said she would teach me how to cook ogbono soup properly. Still, Nana said nothing. And Bella, she promised we would live together forever. Grace broke down. A kind neighbor tried to hold her as she sobbed loudly beside the grave. God, please take me too, she cried. What am I going to do now? But her tears, unfortunately, could not bring them back. Back at the house, everything felt empty. Grace walked slowly into her room. Her sister's bed was still neatly made and untouched. Their dolls were still on the shelf. A drawing of the family done by Bella hung on the wall. She picked it up and hugged it, tears soaking the paper. The house was full, but Grace had never felt so alone. Even after the funeral, people kept coming. Both neighbors, church members, and family friends. They brought food and different items, but none of those could fill the hole left by her parents and Bella. One afternoon, Grace sat quietly in the sitting room, dressed in a plain gown. Her hair had already been shaved low according to the custom. Her face looked pale and tired. Her one good eye stared blankly at the wall, while women whispered nearby. Why do bad things always happen to good people? Only her survived that kind of accident. This girl needs serious prayers. One eye is gone, no father, no mother, and no sister. Grace blinked slowly. She wasn't angry at their words. She just felt empty. Another afternoon, a tall man with grey beard stepped into the compound. He wore a clean white kaftan and dark glasses. He was accompanied by a younger man who held a bag of gifts. Nana came out surprised. Ah, Chief Ahaji Danjuman. Long time, sir. Good afternoon, Nana, the man greeted calmly. I came as soon as I heard the news. Where is Grace? Grace was sitting quietly in a plastic chair outside. Mr. Danjuma walked up to her slowly. Grace, my name is Chief Danjuma. I was a very good friend to your father. We both served on the board of directors in Lagos. Grace stood up and gave a weak bow. Good afternoon, sir. I'm so sorry for your loss, he said, his eyes filled with sorrow. Your father was a good man. He was generous and brave. Your mother too. I don't know what to say. Tears filled up Grace's eye, but she wiped it quickly. I brought a few things for you, he said, handing the bag to her. I know they won't change anything, but I hope they remind you that you are not alone. Thank you, sir, Grace whispered. He reached out to his pocket and gave her a card. If you ever need anything at all, call me. I live in Ikeda, Lagos. Don't hesitate, okay? Something in Grace's heart stirred. She nodded slowly. I will keep it safe, sir. Later that evening, she slipped the card into the back of one of her books. Then she placed the book inside a box and placed it under her bed. The next week, the will was read. Everyone gathered at the law office of Barrister Okafor. An old round-bellied man with thick glasses. Grace wore a simple blouse and skirt. Nana and her husband Benji were dressed like royalty. After a few formalities, the lawyer began. This is the last will and testament of the late Chief Emeka Madu. As agreed by law in his own handwriting, the following distribution is to be observed. He cleared his throat. 90% of Chief Emeka's assets, including land documents, company shares and bank accounts, will be held in trust for his daughters, Grace and Bella Madu, until they attain the age of 23. He paused. Grace looked down. Bella was gone. The lawyer continued. In the case that only one child remains, the asset shall go to her alone. The remaining 10% shall be allocated to his younger sister, Mrs. Nana Okonkwo, and her husband, Benjamin Okonkwo. They shall also serve as guardian and caretaker of the child until she becomes of age. There was a silence in the room. Benji coughed. Nana's face had tightened like boiled momo. She forced a smile. So everything goes to this girl? Yes, the lawyer replied, by law and by her father's instruction. Benji stood up angrily. But we are the ones feeding her and living with her. We've taken care of her like our own child. The lawyer calmly closed the file. Chief Emeka trusted you would take care of her well. Mr. Benji, the assets are not to be touched until she's 23. If anything happens to her before then, the law will investigate. Nana forced a laugh. Of course, what nonsense are you even saying? God forbid anything happens to Grace. She's our daughter now, eh? But behind the forced laughter, something dark burned in her eyes. Later that evening, Nana stormed into the kitchen where Grace was washing plates. She slammed a bowl on the table. So now you own everything, eh, Madam Harris? Benjamin sat in the corner, drinking beer. You better don't let it enter your head. This is still our house. Ebere walked in wearing Grace's old slippers. One-eye witch, she whispered. See how she's forming rich girl with her useless eye. Grace said nothing. She only blinked and wiped away her tears. Nana hissed and pointed a finger in her face. Listen to me, Grace. As long as you are in this house, you are nothing. That inheritance, it means nothing until you are 23. Till then, you are mine, and I will make sure you suffer so much you will beg me to take it all. Benji laughed drunkenly. Better start from tomorrow. That girl would learn how to mop the whole compound with her tongue if necessary. Grace wiped her wet hands on her wrapper and quietly walked away. Nana barged into her room later that evening and asked her to leave her room and move to the boys' quarters. But auntie, this room holds a lot of memory. It was the room I and Bella shared. Before Grace could finish the statement, Nana gave her a hot slap. This is no longer your room. You have to move out. It belongs to Ebere now. Ebere came into the room with her small box and ordered Grace to leave. Grace wiped her tears and did as instructed. She moved her things to the boys' quarters. She climbed into the small bed, coiled up and hugged the picture of her parents and Bella. I miss you, she whispered. But she made a silent promise to herself. For you, Bella, I will survive. Several months passed and Grace's life had already become a prison. She no longer smiled. The once lively girl with two loving parents and a twin sister now lived like a maid in the house her parents built with love. Her left eye lost in the accident and has been replaced with a patch. And with that patch came a name she hated, One Eye. Her cousin Ebere never missed a chance to insult her. She looks like a witch, Ebere said loudly one morning at breakfast. Anytime her one eye blinks, it's like she wants to call somebody. Nana laughed out. Leave her, Joe. If not for us, she would have died like the rest of the family. We are doing her a favor. Nana had forgotten everything her brother had done for her. How he paid her rent for years, trained her children, gave her and her husband money to start the business. All was buried with him. What remained in her heart was bitterness, envy, and greed. To her, Grace was a burden, a threat, and a mistake. When Grace entered SS2, Nana became more determined to ruin her future. I can't continue wasting money on this girl, Nana told her husband Benji. Let us withdraw her from that school. She can start learning how to plait hair. So one morning, she sent someone to Grace's school with a withdrawal letter. But Mrs. Williams, the principal of her school, was not a fool. She read the letter, shook her head and called Grace into her office. Grace, what is going on? She asked gently. Do you truly want to stop school? No, ma, Grace replied quickly. I want to continue. I don't want to withdraw. Mrs. Williams sighed. I thought so. Your results are excellent and your teachers speak highly of you. Leave this to me. She contacted Child Welfare Service immediately. Nana was summoned to the school office. Madam, the officer began, we received a report that you are trying to withdraw your niece from school. Can you explain? Nana forced a smile. I think there is a misunderstanding. Grace told me herself that she wants to stop school and learn work. Isn't that right, Grace? Grace turned to her aunt, confused. The woman beside her no longer looked like the aunt that used to serve her jollof rice during Christmas. Say it, Nana hissed under her breath. You want to disgrace me here? Grace looked down and mumbled, Yes, ma, I said it. The officer looked at her for a long moment, suspicious but without evidence. Back home, Nana dragged Grace by the ear and locked her in the bathroom for a full day. No food, no water, and no talking back, Nana shouted. Next time you go outside and disgrace me, you will sleep in the gutter. Grace cried that night. Her tears soaked her wrapper. She felt forgotten, abandoned, and alone. Not everyone in the house hated her. Chike, her older cousin, who was just 2 years older than her, did not have the courage to defend her publicly. But he could not stand what his family were doing to her. He watched as Grace washed the entire compound barefoot. He saw her ironing Ebere's uniform after scrubbing her mother's bathroom. He heard her crying quietly in the kitchen late at night. Sometimes, when no one was watching, he would pass her a piece of mint or a packet of chin-chin through the window. "Eat this before someone sees me," he would whisper. "Thank you," Grace would say softly, holding it as if it was gold. But one day, Ebere caught them. "Mommy, Chike is giving that witch food again." Nana stormed into the kitchen with a belt in her hand. "So it's true, you want to turn my son against me?" She grabbed Grace and began to whip her across her arm, her back, and even her legs. "Useless girl, one-eyed devil, I knew you were a curse from the day you entered this house." Grace screamed in pain. Chike stood nearby. His fists were tight, his head was down. He couldn't watch, but he also couldn't stop it. Later that night, he knocked quietly in her window again. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I won't do it again. I just hate seeing them treat you like this." Grace managed a small smile through her tears. "It's okay. At least someone still sees me." Grace managed to finish secondary school despite it all. Her results were excellent. She had dreams of studying mass communication at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. She studied every night. Chike secretly printed jam-packed questions for her from a cafe. She prepared like her life depended on it because it did. The night before the entrance exam, Nana did the unthinkable. "She won't go anywhere," she said coldly. "I'll make sure of it." She added sleeping pills into Grace's Zobo drink and handed it over to her with a smile. "Relax, you've studied well," Nana said sweetly. "Drink this and sleep well. Tomorrow is a big day." Grace drank it without suspicion. She didn't wake up until 11:30 a.m. the next morning. Her alarm clock was missing. She jumped from the mattress and rushed to the parlor barefoot and confused. "Auntie, where is my alarm clock? Why didn't you wake me? My exam was this morning." Nana sat calmly, peeling oranges. "Oh, I thought you said it was next week." Grace froze. No, no, auntie, it was today. I told you. I told everyone." Benji laughed from the couch. "You've not entered the university, but you are behaving like a professor." Grace ran to the bathroom and shut the door. There she sank on the floor and cried. Her fist hit the wall softly. "I tried. I did everything. Why do they hate me so much?" she whispered. After that, life became worse. Her friends had all gone to the universities, polytechnics and college of education. But Grace was still in that house, forgotten, mocked and alone. She had no phone, no social media, and no one visited her. Nana had blocked her from everyone. The only thing that kept her going was a small box of photographs of her parents and her twin sister, Bella. Every day, she would open the box, stare at their smiling faces and whisper, "I haven't given up. I will leave this place somehow. I will survive." And when she turned 23, everything changed. The morning of Grace's 23rd birthday was quiet, too quiet. She woke up early as usual, swept the compound and washed dishes. But something about that day felt different. There was no shouting, no mocking from Ebere, no demands from Nana. That evening, the doorbell rang. It was Barrister Okafor, her father's lawyer. He sat in the living room, waiting to speak with Nana, Benji, and Grace. Nana came out in her best lace, wearing a false smile. "Ah, Barrister, you didn't tell us you were coming, no." Benji shook the lawyer's hand roughly. "Welcome, how is Abuja?" Barrister Okafor smiled politely. "Let's not waste time. I'm here to fulfill the will of the late Chief Emeka Mandu. Grace is now 23 years old, and as stated, All that was held in trust is now hers. Nana's smile vanished. Benji leaned forward. You mean everything? Yes, the lawyer replied firmly. Grace is the sole heir to 90% of her father's assets, including the mansion, multiple land documents in Enugu and Asaba, 3 company shares, and over 42 million naira in her trust fund. He turned to Grace with a kind smile. All of it is now legally yours. He handed her a brown envelope stamped and sealed. Inside are the documents, account access codes, and instructions. Keep them safe. And if you ever need help, call me. I owe your father that much. Grace's hand trembled as she took it. Thank you, sir, she whispered, and he left. Silence filled the house. Benji poured himself a drink and gulped it. Nana stood at the balcony for hours, her eyes narrowed in thought. Later that night, she turned to her husband. We made a mistake. We should have finished her off the day her parents died. If she reports us to the police now, we are done. Benji slammed his glass down. We need to handle her once and for all. Behind the kitchen door, Chike stood frozen, listening. That night, when the entire house was quiet, Grace heard a knock on her window. It was Chike. He opened the window and climbed in quietly. His face was pale with fear. Grace, listen to me, he whispered. You have to leave tonight. What? She asked, confused. I heard them, my parents. They are planning to kill you, just like they did to your parents. Grace stepped back in shock. What are you saying, Chike? Chike nodded. It wasn't an accident. My mom bribed the driver. He cut the brake lines. That accident was planned. But only your sister and parents died. You survived, and they've hated you for it ever since. Grace held her chest. She could barely breathe. Chike reached for her hand. I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you before. I've been scared all my life, but I won't stay quiet anymore. You have to run. Grace, you have to get far away from this house. Tears streamed down Grace's face. But where will I go? He handed her a small backpack. There's some money inside. Take your documents, your pictures. Go to Lagos. Look for your father's friend, Mr. Danjuma. You once mentioned him. You will be safe there. Grace nodded slowly. Thank you for everything. She brought out the box and poured some of the contents in the bag, including Mr. Danjuman's card. Chike opened the back gate and watched as she ran down the street barefoot and shaking. Run, Grace, he whispered, and don't look back. Grace boarded a night bus to Lagos. She didn't sleep a wink. Her hands clutched the backpack tightly, her eyes wide open. Her body still hot from years of beating, but her heart hot even more. She arrived in Lagos about 5:30 a.m. in the morning. The bus dropped her at Ojota Park. The city was already busy, hawkers shouting, touts collecting transport fees, buses honking. Everything moved too fast. She sat on a bench, clutching her bag, trying to figure out where Ikeja was. Suddenly, a man in dirty jeans came close. Sister, how far? Do you have change? Before she could answer, another one snatched her bag and took off running. My bag! My document! Grace screamed and ran after him. The street blurred around her as she chased him through the busy road. People shouted, Thief! Thief! But no one stopped him. In the middle of the road, she heard screeching tires. A car hit her. She flew into the air and landed hard on the ground, and everything went blank. She lay unconscious by the roadside, bleeding from her head, mouth and shoulder. Her clothes were torn. A kind pepper seller and 2 keke riders rushed to her side. This girl is still breathing, one said. "Let's rush her to the general hospital before she dies," another shouted. They wrapped her in a cloth and took her away. 3 days later, Grace opened her eyes slowly. She was lying in a hospital bed. Her head was wrapped in bandages. Her left shoulder was supported with a POP. A nurse walked in and gasped, "Doctor, she's awake." The doctor rushed in. "Madam, can you hear me?" Grace looked at him confused. "Do you remember what happened?" "What is your name?" he asked. She blinked. "My name? My name?" But nothing came. "I don't know," she whispered. Her eyes began to fall again. This time not because of pain, but because her entire life had vanished, just like her family. She had escaped death, only to lose everything she had left, her memories. Grace spent a few more days in the hospital after waking up. Her head still throbbed sometimes, and her left shoulder ached whenever she tried to lift it. The doctor said she was lucky to be alive, but luck didn't pay hospital bills. On the morning she was told she could be discharged, the nurse brought her a printed bill. Grace stared at the number, her one good eye wide with shock. I don't have any money," she whispered. "I don't even know where I live." The nurse gave her a pitying look but said softly, "Without paying, the hospital cannot release you." That afternoon, while she sat quietly on her bed, wondering what would happen to her, a woman in a neat white uniform walked into the ward. She had a kind, open face and carried herself with gentle confidence. "Good afternoon, my dear," she said warmly. "My name is Nurse Bisi." Grace blinked. She was not sure how to reply. "Good afternoon, ma." The nurse sat beside her bed. "The doctor told me about your case. You don't remember your name or where you are from, and you have no one to pay your treatment." Grace looked down. "Yes, ma." Nurse Bisi placed a warm hand over her. "Don't worry, I will settle your bill. The hospital will subtract it from my salary each month until it's cleared." Grace's lips trembled. "Why? You don't even know me." "Because," Nurse Bisi said with a soft smile, "we don't help people because we know them. We help because it is the right thing to do." Tears filled Grace's eye. "Thank you, ma. God bless you." Later that day, the paperwork was complete and Grace was discharged. But instead of sending her into the streets, Nurse Bisi said, "Come with me. You will stay in my house until you regain your memory and can stand on your own." Her home was a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of Lagos. Waiting at the door was a beautiful 12-year-old girl with bright eyes and neatly plaited hair. "This is my daughter Ayomide," Nurse Bisi said proudly. "Ayo, greet our guests." "Good afternoon, ma," Ayo said shyly. Grace smiled faintly. "Good afternoon." From that day, Nurse Bisi treated Grace like her younger sister. She gave her a name, Anike, since Grace could not remember her real one. "You are precious to me, like someone meant to be cherished," Nurse Bisi said. Anike respected her deeply, always calling her sister, and treated Ayomide like her own younger sister. She helped with chores, sweeping, washing plates, even cooking small meals, despite Nurse Bisi's constant reminders to rest. "You don't have to do all this," she said. "I want to," Anike would reply. "It makes me feel useful." A couple of months passed, and Anike's wound healed completely. She still could not remember her past, but she had found a strange peace in her new life. One evening after work, Nurse Bisi sat with her in the small living room. You have recovered well now, she said. I know you can't stay here forever. Would you like to walk? Something simple, just to keep you busy and earn a little money. Anike nodded eagerly. Yes, sister, I want to walk. Within a week, Nosbisi spoke to a friend who owned a popular buka called Iya Sikirat Buka, not too far from the house. The owner agreed to take Anike in as a helper for clearing tables, serving customers and washing dishes when needed. The morning Anike started the job, Ayomide hugged her tightly. Don't forget to come back early, she said with a smile. I won't, Anike promised, smiling for the first time in a long time. Back in Enugu, the days had turned into weeks, and there was still no word from Grace. Chike sat in the sitting room holding his phone as if he was waiting for it to ring. Each time it vibrated, he would snatch it up only to feel his heart sink when it wasn't Grace. She said she would call, he said to himself, pacing the floor. Why hasn't she called? The worry in his chest grew heavier each day. He remembered the look on her face when she left, the confusion, the pain. Deep down, he feared something bad had happened. Meanwhile, Nana and Benji were restless. Grace's disappearance had taken them by surprise. They had wanted her gone permanently, but they had not expected her to vanish without a trace. Have you heard anything? Benji asked, his voice low. Nana shook her head. No. I've asked Chike, but he said he doesn't know where she is. They were both suspicious. Later that night, they went to the boys' quarters, where Grace used to stay. They began to search, under the bed, inside the wardrobe, between stacks of clothes. It wasn't until Nana pulled open the small metal box at the corner that they both froze. The documents, they are not here, Nana said sharply. Benji's face tightened. What do you mean they are not here? They were here before. Panic gripped them both. If Grace has taken this paper, it means she has something dangerous in her possession. Something that could ruin them. News of her disappearance eventually reached Barrister Okafor, the family lawyer. He immediately began his quiet search, calling in contacts, asking questions in places most people would avoid. At the same time, Nana and Benji filed an official missing person report. They had to keep up appearances, even though they had wished she was gone. They didn't want the police suspecting them of anything. The police conducted their investigation, but after a month, there was still nothing. One afternoon, the officer in charge called them in. From the information we have, he said slowly, it appears she left on her own terms. There is no sign of foul play. Nana and Benji exchanged a glance. The tension in their shoulders eased. With Grace gone and no one pressing further, they began to relax, even celebrate. They quietly took over the mansion and several properties they could access, moving in as though the place has always belonged to them. But while they smiled and enjoyed their newfound power, in a small dimly lit room across town, Chike sat alone, consumed by worry and guilt. He told himself every day that she was fine, that she would walk back through the door someday. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Something was terribly wrong. Life in Lagos had taken a new rhythm for Grace, now known to everyone as Anike. Her days began early with the aroma of beef stew and soft sound of mortar pounding yam and people turning amala. Her new workplace, Iya Sikirat Buka, was famous all over Lagos for its special amala and ewedu soup. The small open-air spot tucked in the busy streets of Magodo was always bustling. Bikemen stopped for a quick meal. Bankers in white shirts escaped their offices. Doctors in scrubs grabbing lunch before their next shift. Anike served them all with the same warm respect, her soft voice and gentle smile making even the most hurried customer pause for a moment of kindness. Iya Sikirat, the woman who had given her the job, was a fierce protector. The day a loud, arrogant customer made the mistake of commenting on Grace's eyes, Iya Sikirat's voice cut through the booker like a knife. "Listen to me well," she said. "If you ever talk to my daughter like that again, you will never step your foot into this place in your life." The man, embarrassed, mumbled an apology and never tried it again. From that day, no one dared to mock Anike in her presence. Anike still lived with Nonsbisi, who had taken her in like family. She had grown fond of Ayomide and would often braid her hair for school. On some weekends, she would quietly contribute to the household expenses, even when Nonsbisi told her not to bother. "You are family now," Nonsbisi would say. "Your money is yours to keep, not for us." But Anike, stubborn in her gratitude, still found ways to give back. 6 months passed. One hot afternoon, the booker was unusually full, the air thick with the scent of smoky stew and hot amala. Word had spread that a group of VIP guests were coming. They had heard so much about Iya Sikirat's cooking and wanted to experience it for themselves. When they arrived, their convoy of sleek black cars drew curious stares. The men stepped out, well-dressed, important-looking, and took their seats at the booker. Iya Sikirat, proud of her food and her staff, called Anike. "Please, serve these guests yourselves. I trust you," she said to Anike. As Anike placed the steaming plate of amala, ewedu and gbegiri in front of them, one of the men, a tall, broad-shouldered figure in his 60s, with streaks of grey hair in his beard, froze. His eyes widened. "Grace! Grace Mandu," he said, his voice trembling with disbelief. The table went silent. His associates turned to him. "Ahaji, you know her?" one of them asked. But the man, Ahaji Danjuma, didn't answer them. He stood, walked straight to Anike and pulled her in for a hug. It was the embrace of someone who had just found something precious they thought was lost forever. "My God," he whispered, "it's you! After all these years, it's you!" Grace looked at him in confusion, not knowing he was the reason she came to Lagos in the first place. The booker had fallen silent. All eyes were on the tall man who had just held Anike in a firm embrace. Iya Sikirat's brows lifted and a slow smile spread across her face. "So someone who knows her has finally found her," she said, her voice warm with relief. "Ahaji, you don't know how glad I am. Let me tell you how this my Anike came to me." She gestured for the guests to make space, and they all listened as she began. "A few months ago," Iya Sikirat said, "there was a terrible accident at Iyanopaja Motor Park. A terrible one. This girl was rushed to the hospital, bleeding badly and unconscious. The doctor confirmed that she had lost her memory. Nonsbisi was the one on duty that night when no one came to claim her. Bisi took her in like a sister and gave her the name Anike. Nonsbisi wasn't there yet, but everyone could almost picture her kindness. Ahaji Danjuma's grip on Anike's shoulder tightened. His voice trembled as he asked, "What is your full name?" She looked confused. "Anike, that's the only name I've known for now." He shook his head slowly. "Your name is not Anike. It's Grace Mandu. You are the daughter of Chief Emeka Mandu, my best friend and business partner. Years ago, you, your parents, and your twin sister Bella were involved in a terrible car accident. You were the only one who survived." The men at his table exchanged shocked glances. "Wait," one of them interrupted, his voice rising. "Are you talking about the Chief Emeka Madu?" "Yes," Ahaji Danjuma replied, his tone heavy. "The same man we all know." There was murmuring through the group. They each stood, taking turns to hug Grace, murmuring words of pity and disbelief. From the corner of her eye, Grace noticed customer had stopped eating. Everyone in the buka was watching, whispering among themselves. Just then, Nosbisi walked in carrying a small market bag. She froze at the sight of gathering around her foster sister. "What's going on here?" she said, her eyes darting between Grace and Ahaji Danjuma. Ahaji stepped forward. "You must be Nosbisi. God bless you for taking care of her." Iya Sikirat quickly explained everything to her, from the hug to the revelation. Ahaji Danjuma's voice grew soft as he looked at Grace. "Your father was a good man. He paid school fees for children whose parents couldn't afford it. He gave jobs to widows. He once built a borehole for an entire village just because their women walked too far to fetch water. And you were a bright, beautiful girl. You loved dancing and reading. Your father used to say you and your sister would take over his company one day." Grace's lips trembled. Her mind could not recall any of those memories, but her heart ached deeply. Tears spilled down her cheek. Nosbisi moved closer, holding her tightly. "It's all right, my dear. It's all right." Ahaji Danjuma sighed and pulled out his phone. "I need to make a call." He stepped outside briefly, dialing a number he knew by heart. It was the police station in Enugu. When an officer answered, his voice was urgent. "Do you have an update on Grace Mandu? This is Ahaji Danjuma." The officer hesitated. "Sir, she was declared missing months ago. According to our investigation, it looks like she ran away. Some of her valuables were gone the day she disappeared." Ahaji was surprised. "When exactly did she disappear from home?" "Late at night," the officer replied. Ahaji returned to the table, thoughtful. "Nosbisi, when exactly did you find her?" Bisi's voice was firm. "It was around midnight. They rushed her to the hospital at the early hours of the morning." Ahaji's eyes narrowed. If she disappeared from home at midnight, then she was running away from something or someone. His words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. The buka was silent again, except for the faint clinking of spoons in the far corner. Grace wiped her tears, looking from one face to another. "I don't remember any of it." Ahaji placed a reassuring hand on her. "It's all right, my dear. We'll find out the truth. You are not alone anymore." Nosbisi squeezed her shoulder, while Iya Sikirat whispered a prayer under her breath. The day that started with the smell of amala now carried the scent of old memories, unanswered questions, and the beginning of a search for the truth. Ahaji Danjuma sat forward, his voice firm but kind. "Grace, you will come with me," he said, leaving no room for argument. Nosebisi's brow knit in worry. But, no buts. Ahaji cut in gently. I won't take her away from you completely. But she needs a safe place now. Somewhere secure. You can come whenever you want to. Grace hesitated, her gaze darting between them. She didn't fully understand why this man was so helpful. But there was something in his tone that made her trust him. The drive to Nosebisi's model apartment was quiet. Grace sat in the back, staring out of the window, her one good eye following the blur of Lagos traffic. Nosebisi occasionally reached over and squeezed her hand. When they arrived, Grace packed her few belongings, mostly simple dresses, and a small purse of savings. To be sure Grace would be comfortable, Nosebisi insisted on following them to Ahaji's home. The car soon rolled into a high-walled compound guarded by uniformed security men. Grace's eyes widened. The mansion before her stood tall and elegant, with a large fountain in the front yard. At the doorway, Mrs. Danjuma appeared, a graceful woman in her 50s. Wearing a flowing Ankara gown, her eyes grew wild as she saw Grace. "My God, who is this?" she asked. Her husband stepped forward. "This is Grace Mandu, Chief Emeka Mandu's daughter. I found her today, working as a waitress." Mrs. Danjuma's hand flew in her mouth. Working as a waitress? After everything her father did in this country? Her voice broke. "Oh my dear." Ahaji went into his study and returned with a large leather-bound photo album. He flipped through the pages until he found a photograph. Him and Chief Emeka Mandu, standing together, smiling, their arms around each other. He placed it before Grace. The moment her eye fell on the image, she gasped. A sharp pain shot through her head as flashes of images ran through her mind. A man's deep laugh, the sound of a girl's voice calling her. Her breathing quickened. "Quick, prepare the guest room." "No, my daughter's old room," Mrs. Danjuma instructed one of the maids. "She needs to rest." As they led Grace away, Mrs. Danjuma turned to Nosebisi and held her hands warmly. "You are a good woman. Thank you for taking care of her all this while. Please, you are welcome here anytime you want to visit." Bisi smiled faintly. "She's like a sister to me. I'm just happy she's safe." Meanwhile, far away in Enugu, Chike sat at the edge of his bed, staring at his silent phone. The world seemed to close in on him. He couldn't take it anymore. At the police station, he poured out everything to the officer in charge, his voice shaking as he recounted how his parents had tried to end Grace's life after she received her inheritance, and how she ran away in the middle of the night to meet his father's old friend, Ahaji Danjuma, in Ikeja, Lagos. "Please, if you can reach him," the officer was already dialing. He put the phone on speaker. "Hello, Alhaji," the officer greeted. "Yes, this is Danjuma. There is someone here, Mr. Chike, who says he knows Grace Mandu." Before the officer could finish, Chike's voice broke in. "Please, is she with you? Tell me she's alive." There was a pause, then Ahaji Danjuma replied, "Yes, she's here, she's safe." Chike's breath hitched. "Thank God, thank God." But then his voice hardened slightly. "Why hasn't she called me? Does she even care?" Ahaji hesitated. "Chike, she doesn't remember you or anyone. She lost her memory after the accident." The words hit Chike like a punch in his chest. She can't remember me?" "No," Ahaji said gently, "but you can speak to her now if you want." There was some silence. And then Grace's soft voice came through. Hello, who is this? Chike swallowed hard. It's me. It's me, Chike. Don't you remember me? His voice cracked. We've been through so much together. There was silence. Then Grace spoke again, confused. I'm sorry, I don't remember you. The dam broke. Chike's tears came hot and fast. It's okay, he whispered. It's okay. I'm just so happy you are alive and in safe hands. On the other end, Ahaji listened quietly, knowing this was only the beginning of a long road back to the truth. Few days later, Chike went to Lagos to see Grace. Nana and Benji still had no idea that Grace had been found. They went about their lives in Enugu, pretending to neighbors that nothing was wrong. But the police were already on their trail. Quietly, investigators began surveillance. Officers dressed as normal people visited the house under the pretense of official check, and while Nana proudly boasted about her perfect home, they secretly planted cameras in almost every corner of the house. Back in Lagos, Grace had begun therapy. Chike, determined to stay by her side, visited constantly. He held her hands during sessions, encouraged her whenever she felt weak. Nosbisi visited every day. Sometimes she brought Ayomide along. The little girl would hug Grace tightly, refusing to let her go. Auntie Grace, I miss you, she would say with a big hug. Grace smiled always because the feeling was mutual. One morning, during a hospital visit, Aji Danjuma asked the doctor, Doctor, is there anything that can be done about her eye? The doctor did some tests on Grace. Then he came back. The eye is not fully damaged. With surgery, we can restore her sight. Afterwards, she will need to wear medicated glasses for some time. The room was brightened with joy. Everyone was happy. Are you sure? Yes, the doctor nodded. We'll schedule the surgery. Grace hugged Nosbisi as tears rolled down her chin. That night, Nosbisi knelt before her bed and prayed for Grace. The day of the surgery came. Grace was wheeled into the theater. Her body was trembling. As the anesthesia began to flow, her vision blurred, but suddenly her mind lit up with sharp, clear images. Her parents laughing at the dining table, her little sister running around the compound. Nana's face twisted in anger. The sound of brakes screeching, the crash and blood. Her eyes fluttered as tears rolled down her cheek. Memories she thought she lost forever came flooding back. Hours later, the doctor came with a smile. The surgery was successful. When Grace woke up, her bandaged eye felt sore, but her heart was pounding with something strange. Ahaji Danjuma and Nosbisi rushed to her side. Grace, my dear, Ahaji said softly, how do you feel? Her lips trembled as tears streamed down her face. Ahaji Danjuma, Nosbisi, my memory is back. Nosbisi was shocked, gripping her hand. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Ahaji's eyes softened with relief. You are safe now, Grace. You will never walk alone again. She spent a few more days in the hospital before returning to Ahaji Danjuman's mansion, where she was treated properly. For the first time since tragedy struck her family, Grace felt she had a home again. Meanwhile, in Enugu, Chike returned from Lagos. His heart was heavy. He walked into his parents' living room, his eyes blazing. You did this, he said coldly. Benji looked up from his chair. What nonsense are you saying, Chike? Chike was angry. Don't play games with me. I know you and mommy killed Chief Emeka Mandu and his family. I know you are the reason Grace almost died. I heard you both the night she disappeared. How you said it was better she run for her life. Nana's eyes widened. You were listening? Yes, Chike said. I was the one who told Grace to run, to save herself from you demons. Benji was surprised, but before he could say any more word, Nana stood up, her face dark with rage. She slapped Chike. Yes, she screamed. Yes, I killed her parents and her sister. I was the one who spoiled the brakes of the car. That one-eyed devil. It's lucky she survived. Nana's chest tightened as years of bitterness poured out of her mouth. I did this for us, Chike, so we can finally take over the Mandu property. He was my brother, yes, but he mocked me with his wealth. Every time we complained about our struggles, he would come running like some savior. All I asked was for him to give me and your father one of his companies. Just one. But he refused. Instead, he offered to set up a small business for us. Imagine me, his only sister, reduced to begging while he controlled millions. Her voice cracked with venom. And then that idiot had the audacity to write a will and hand everything to his one-eyed witch of a daughter. No, I wasn't going to let that happen. Not while I live. The room fell into a stone silence. For the first time in his life, Chike looked at his mother and father with pure hatred. Chike stood frozen in the middle of the room, his chest heavy from his mother's confession. He could hardly breathe. His ears rang with the weight of her words, each syllable stabbing into his heart like a blade. You killed them, he whispered, his voice breaking. You murdered 3 people because of your greed, because you wanted to reap where you did not sow. His knees became weak. He fell to the floor, weak and trembling. You are a murderer, he said through his teeth, tears streaming down his face. You killed Papa Emeka, Mama Amaka and Bella, all because of wealth. I will inform the authorities. You both will pay dearly for what you have done. For a moment there was silence. Then Nana let out a loud mocking laugh, joined by Benji. And what proof do you have, my son? Nana said, her eyes gleaming with wickedness. Do you think anyone will believe you? You, a useless boy who has nothing to show for his life. Who will believe that I killed my brother with my hands? Benji smiled from his chair. Go ahead, Chike, run to the police. By the time you finish talking, they will think you are mad. Chike became weaker. He wanted to scream, but his words were caught in his throat. Just then, a loud bang shook the house. The front door flung open and uniformed officers stormed in, their guns raised. Nana and Benji's faces drained of color. The lead officer's voice thundered. Mr. and Mrs. Nwodu, you are under arrest for the murder of Chief Emeka Mandu, his wife Amaka Mandu and their daughter Bella Mandu, and for the attempted murder of Grace Mandu. Gasps filled the air. Nana staggered back, clutching her chest. Benji's jaw fell open, his lips trembling. What? What are you saying? Benji stammered. Who told you? But the officer cut him short. We heard it from your own mouth. We've been watching you. Cameras were planted in this house weeks ago. Your confession had been recorded. Nana's eyes widened in horror. She turned to the corner of the room as if the words themselves had betrayed her. No, this can't be happening. Another officer stepped forward and snapped cold steel cuff around Benji's wrist. His once proud shoulder slumped as reality sank in. When the cuffs clicked around Nana's hands, her entire life flashed before her eyes. The years of envy, the bitterness she had carried, The moment she loosened the brakes of her brother's car, she saw it all, but now there was no escape. Chike remained on the floor, his body trembling with mixed emotion. Part of him was relieved that justice was finally being served, but another part of him ached with shame, knowing that it was his own parents being dragged away like criminals. As the officers pushed Nana and Benji towards the waiting van, their neighbors peered through the window whispering. Chike buried his face in his hands. God, how did my own mother and father become monsters? The last thing he saw was the police van door slamming shut, carrying Nana and Benji away into the night. Justice had begun, but the scars left behind would never fully heal. When the police finished their arrest in Enugu, they immediately placed a call to Alhaji Danjuma in Lagos. Sir, the officer reported, Mr. and Mrs. Nwodo had been apprehended. They confessed to the murder of Chief Emeka Mandu, his wife and daughter, and to the attempted murder of Grace Mandu. They are in custody and will face trial. Alhaji Danjuma's face lit up with relief. He raised his hand to the sky. Thank you, Allah, he exclaimed. Those evil people we rot in jail. Justice has finally come. He wasted no time breaking the good news to Grace. Sitting by her bedside, his voice softened. My daughter, the killers had been caught. Your uncle and aunt will never hurt you again. Grace froze, her lips trembling. At first, her eyes widened with relief, but slowly tears began to fall down her cheek. They deserve it, she whispered, but my parents and Bella, they didn't deserve to die like that. My family, they are all gone. Her sobs filled the room, breaking everyone's heart. Alhaji Danjuma wrapped his arms around her shoulder. His wife joined to comfort her, while Nosbisi held her hands tightly. You are not alone, Mrs. Danjuma whispered. We are your family now. You will never walk alone again. For days, they stayed by Grace's side, refusing to leave her, surrounding her with love and strength. Meanwhile, in Enugu, Chike was restless. He had tried calling Ebere several times, but her number was unreachable. Everyone knew her lifestyle, moving from one state to another, spending time with different men, never settling down. Out of frustration, Chike finally sent her a message explaining everything, but no reply came. He sighed deeply. Ebere will never change. Unable to stay away any longer, Chike traveled down to Lagos. His heart raced as he approached Alhaji Danjuma's mansion, unsure of how Grace would receive him. But the moment Grace saw him, she froze, then suddenly ran towards him with tears of joy streaming down her face. Chike, she cried. Chike's knees grew weak. He was stunned. Not only could she see clearly, but she also remembered him. He hadn't been told about the successful eye surgery or her memory recovery. Grace, his voice cracked as he pulled her into his arms. He broke down, this time with tears of joy rolling freely down his cheek. You remember me? Oh, thank God. Grace nodded, her face buried in his chest. Yes, Chike, I remember everything. Thank you. Thank you for never giving up on me. From that day, Chike never left her side. He cared for her like a guardian, ensuring she was safe, happy and comfortable. Every gesture showed the depth of his love, and his guilt turned into renewed purpose to protect her. Alhaji Danjuma and Grace never failed to thank him. One evening, as they all sat together, Alhaji Danjuma placed a hand on Chike's shoulder. You are a brave young man, he said firmly. It took courage to confront your parents, Because of you, justice had prevailed. You will always be honored in this house. Grace smiled through her tears. Chike, you saved me. You saved my father's name. Thank you. And for the first time in a long while, peace began to settle over their broken hearts. A few days after the reunion in Lagos, Chike received a call from the Enugu police station. His heart sank as he listened. Mr. Chike, we regret to inform you. A woman by the name of Ebere Nwodu was found dead in the outskirts of town. She fell victim of ritualists. Her stomach was ripped open and her eyes were missing. The phone nearly slipped from Chike's hands. His chest tightened as though a knife has been driven through it. No, Ebere, he whispered, his knees giving way as he slumped to the floor. The next days were dark. He traveled back to Enugu to identify her remains and arrange for a burial. Standing at her grave, his face streaked with tears, he whispered bitterly, you wasted your life, Ebere, but still you were my sister. May your soul find peace. Though grief tore at him, deep within he knew it was karma. No evil goes unpunished. The shocking news spread quickly when Nana heard of her daughter's gruesome death while locked up in cell. She clutched her chest and collapsed. She suffered a massive heart attack, which led to a stroke that left her half paralyzed and unable to speak. Benji, on the other hand, lost his mind completely while awaiting trial. He became mentally unstable, often screaming at shadows and talking to himself. Chike, though broken, accepted the bitter truth. His family had destroyed themselves with their wickedness. The only light left in his world was Grace. She became the sister, the family, and the hope he had lost. But fate wasn't done unfolding. One afternoon in Lonsbisi's house, a knock came at the door. When she opened it, a trembling young man stood outside, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Madam, please, I need help, he stammered. Nosbisis eyed him suspiciously. What is it? The man shifted uneasily. Some months ago, I stole a bag from a girl, but ever since I have not known peace. Every night I see a man, a woman and a little girl chasing me in my dream with a cane, shouting at me to return what I stole. I didn't know who the girl was until I heard what happened to Grace Madu. At first, I was afraid I'll go to prison, but now, I don't care. I just want peace, even if it means going to jail. He handed her a dusty bag with his trembling hands. Curious, Nosbisi opened it and froze. Inside were pictures of Grace and her family, documents, land titles, bank statements, and papers belonging to Chief Emeka Mandu. It was Grace's inheritance. Shocked, she nearly died the police, but instead she called Grace. Grace, you won't believe this, Nosbisi said breathlessly. A young man just came here. He says he stole your bag that night, and inside it are all your father's inheritance. Should I call the police? Grace was silent for a while. Then her gentle voice came through. No, Auntie Bisi, let him go. If he truly came back on his own, then he's already been punished enough. I forgive him. When Nosbisi told the man, he broke down in uncontrollable tears. Thank you. Thank you. I don't deserve this mercy. God bless you, Grace. God bless you, ma. But Grace was the happiest of all. With the inheritance paper in her possession, she could finally take over what her father had left for her. And deep within her, she knew her parents and sister were watching from above, proud that their legacy had been restored to the only one who truly deserved it. 1 year later, life had taken a beautiful turn for Grace. She had moved into a spacious house in Lagos, a place that finally felt like home. The walls were filled with warmth and laughter and pictures of her family. She was fully recovered, healthy, and with the aid of her glasses, she could now see properly. But she wasn't living alone. Nosbisi, the woman who had once rescued her from despair, and Ayomide, the cheerful 12 years old girl who had become like her sister, were both with her. Together they found a family, not bound by blood but by love. Grace never forgot those who stood by her in her darkest moment. She gave Chike a respected position in her company, ensuring he had dignity and stability. Chike embraced the role with gratitude, never taking for granted the second chance life had offered him. Grace herself went back to school, determined to complete her education and build the kind of future her late father had always dreamed for her. Nosbisi, through Grace's connection, now worked in one of the biggest hospitals in Lagos. Her dreams of advancing her medical career had finally come true. Ayomide, bright and full of joy, lived the best life any child could ask for. She had the love of her mother and the protection of Grace, and the comfort of a home that overflowed with peace. On weekends, she and Grace often visited Ahaji Danjuma and his wife, who adored them deeply. To the outside world, it seemed as though they were their own daughters, and they cherished the bond. One afternoon, Grace visited Ahaji Danjuma in his Ikeja mansion. After a long conversation, he revealed something that left her speechless. "Grace," he said with a gentle smile, "there is something I owe your father. Years ago, your late father, Chief Emeka, invested heavily in my business. Not long after, the stock collapsed, and I was in terrible debt. I thought my life was over." He sighed deeply, his eyes softening at the memory. "But your father, he never once asked me for the money back. He simply told me, 'My friend, don't worry. Life is not always about profit. One day you will rise again.' And then months later, he died." Grace listened silently, her throat tightening with emotion. Ahaji Danjuma continued, "I never forgot that kindness. 7 years after his death, the same stock began to rise again. It reached its all-time high, and when I sold them, I made billions. That money was never mine to keep. It belonged to your father." He handed her a check. Her hand trembled as she read the figure. Over 2 billion naira. Tears rolled down her cheek uncontrollably. "Ahaji, this is too much. No, my dear," he interrupted softly. "This is not a gift. It is a debt I owe your father. And now it belongs to you. Use it well. Make him proud." Grace fell on her knees in gratitude, her heart bursting with both sorrow and joy. In the moment, she felt her father's presence, his sacrifice, his kindness, his love living on through her. And as she looked at the family she had built around her, Nosbisi, Ayomide, Chike and the Danjumans, she knew one thing for certain. The storm was over. A new dawn had begun. Years later, Grace finally wore the cap and gown she once thought she would never wear. Her graduation day had arrived. The air was filled with music, laughter, and the bright color of Reby as friends, family, and well-wishers gathered to celebrate her victory. When it was time for her speech, Grace stepped up to the podium. Her eyes glistened behind her glasses as she looked at the crowd. She took a deep breath, held her microphone, and began to speak from the depth of her heart. Today is not just about me, she said softly, her voice breaking. It is about every single person who stood by me when I was broken, blind, and lost. Without you, I would not be here. She turned to the first row and raised her hand slightly. Ahaji Danjuma, you were more than a helper. You became a father when mine was gone. You gave me love, support, and even restored what my father had left for me. I can never repay your kindness, but I promise to carry it forward. The hawk clapped warmly. Her gaze shifted. Nurse Bisi, my mother when I had no one. You nursed not just my wounds, but my spirit. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself. You are proof that angels walk this earth. Nosbisi wiped tears from her eyes as the crowd applauded. Grace smiled through her own tears and continued. Iya Sikirat, the woman who gave me a place to walk. You treated me like your daughter. Today, I want you to know that your kindness will never be forgotten. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. For that person, I'm going to give a huge sum of money to expand your business. May it grow and prosper just as your heart has blessed me. The hall erupted in cheers and Iyasi Kirat covered her face with both hands, weeping with joy. Finally, Grace's eye fell on Chike. Her voice trembled. Chike, my cousin, my brother, my friend, you confronted the hardest truth even when they almost destroyed you. You carried my pain as if it was yours. You never left my side. Today, I stand because you had the courage to speak up. I will love and honor you for the rest of my life. Chike, unable to hold back, broke down in tears as the audience clapped. Grace raised her certificate high. The degree is not just mine, it belongs to all of us. It belongs to my late parents, my twin Bella, and to every soul that guided me here. Today onwards, I dedicate my life to love, to kindness, to justice. The hall shook with clap. After the ceremony, Grace kept her promise. She gave Iya Sikirat a large sum of money, enough to transform her small shop into a flourishing business. Nurse Bisi continued rising in her medical career till she retired. Ayomide blossomed into a brilliant young woman, and Chike managed her company with integrity and care. Together, they built a life of peace, laughter, and purpose. And so, Grace's story, once filled with darkness and betrayal, became a testimony of survival, forgiveness, and hope. They all lived happily. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of this story is life will test us with pain, betrayal, and loss. But no evil goes unpunished. In the end, truth always comes to light, and justice always finds its way. Grace's life shows that even in the darkest moments, God raises helpers. With courage, forgiveness, and gratitude, one can rebuild a broken life and still find happiness. Kindness never dies, and love always wins. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Remember, no matter how dark life gets, truth always prevails and kindness always finds its reward. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss more inspiring stories like this. Until next time, stay blessed and stay strong.